My name is Mandy Diaz, and I'm the Executive Director at Crossroads Christian School. I was born and raised in Washington State. I lived in a little town called Pullman with my parents and my sister. And when I was a teenager, I ended up moving to North Hollywood when my dad became a worship pastor at a church there. I realized that I loved teaching when I was given the opportunity at 13 years old to teach what was called a Rainbows class. It was the 3 and 4-year-olds on Wednesday night at my church in North Hollywood. I ended up loving it, and I just saw God's gifting in my life, and so I began to explore that as a career at that point. After I graduated college, I had a couple of schools lined up to offer jobs in LA Unified. And I had done my student teaching in the public school system, and I was ready to engage in full-time work, and I enjoyed that season. But then it came to an end when LA Unified laid off about 8,000 teachers. And I was now looking for a teaching position with 8,000 other highly qualified people. Senior year of college, I happened to run into my elementary school principal at a CVS near my house, and she said, "When you graduate, let me know and I'll get you a job." And so when I was laid off from LA Unified with 8,000 other people, I reached out to her and I said, "I'm here, I'd love to work in private school." And she didn't actually have a job at that time, but she referred me to a friend of hers. And so that was my first full-time teaching experience in private school. It was in a 3rd grade class with 2 teachers on the grade level, and it was remarkable. And I'll never forget the first months that I was in school. I remember standing there and realizing how much time I had actually been spending on classroom management when I was in public school. And I realized how much further I'd be able to take these children because I had the support of parents, and I had a different level of classroom management for kids who were engaged and prepared to learn every day. And I realized I am meant for private school. I don't want to do anything else. And so that started my private school career. When I was teaching 3rd grade for the first time in private school, we were at a low resource school. It was a struggling private school, so we didn't have a lot of resources in order to do what we needed to in the classroom. And so my husband actually helped me create a smart board out of a Wii remote and a laser pointer and different things where we really came together to be able to offer the students something, a more engaging learning environment than just learning outside of the textbook. Because of these things, my class went extremely far, and we took a standardized test every year, as do most schools, and my 3rd grade class actually scored at a 7th grade level. And I saw then exactly how far we could go when you have the right ingredients, when you have parent support, when you have a teacher who cares and is passionate about what they're doing, and the kids who are prepared to learn. After that, the school I was at had been struggling financially, and so they notified me and the parents that several of the teachers were not going to be renewed the next year in a cost-saving effort. And so I was approached by a group of parents who had been interested in starting their own school, and they had had their children in my class, and they saw that my reputation had grown because I was able to take kids farther than the average teacher. And so they approached me with the idea of, would you be interested in leading the start of a brand new private school? And of course my answer was, absolutely, let's do it. So we opened that fall with 11 students in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade in a 1-room schoolhouse. I was the sole teacher, and parents volunteered to cover recess and lunch so I would have a little bit of a break. And we worked hard that year to get the school off the ground. The next year, we expanded to 50 students in grades kindergarten to 5th grade. At that time, I was still full-time in the classroom and also leading as head of school. In the following year, we moved into our own campus. Previously, we had been renting from a church. So now we had our own campus. We expanded to preschool. So we had preschool through 5th grade, and the school continued to grow. At the peak when I was there, we were at about 175 students in infant to 5th grade. In my 8 years at that school, one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that we were able to achieve Blue Ribbon status, and our kids scored in the top 85th percentile in the nation in reading and math. So even though we were this small grassroots school who had started from literally almost nothing with 11 kids, we eventually grew to become one of the most academically rigorous schools who had a strong focus on the Lord. When I came to tour Crossroads as a part of my interview process, I was really intrigued to learn about the educational philosophy, the day-to-day culture, what was going on campus. And one of the things that struck me immediately was the fact that this is a God-first school. Everyone on campus had the joy of the Lord and was clearly passionate about following Him themselves. But beyond that, I was also looking around and I saw myself in the educational philosophy. I believed so wholeheartedly in each and everything that was being done that I said, I would want my kids here even if I wasn't employed here. I would want to bring my kids to Crossroads. So I've been at Crossroads for 3 years now, and some of the things that we've done in looking at making the school better each and every year, first and foremost was to provide additional professional development and coaching for our facilitators. We have an amazing staff, and we can learn from one another, and we have people in key roles that can help support and grow and challenge them. And we started a fresh look at what academic excellence truly means. And so over the course of the 3 years here, we've seen an increase in our standardized test scores, seeing learners become closer and closer to those top echelons in the nation, which is our ultimate goal for the school. One of the great things that we're seeing is the cultivation of our middle school tackle program. We're already seeing these young men step up in a way that they haven't been able to before. They're getting coaching that goes beyond the field. We're seeing an increase in the positive behaviors in class. We're seeing them take ownership, having more confidence. But it's so amazing to see that these kids are getting poured into by their coaches and that it's going beyond the football field. Already, families are noticing a difference. When I think about the vision of what we have at Crossroads, I'm so excited. I'm excited for a school that will have a high school of almost 350 learners. I'm excited for a middle school to move on to the high school campus. It's more developmentally appropriate for our middle school and high school to be paired together than our elementary and middle school. For us to expand in our grade levels and be able to offer more athletics, more programming, to be able to deepen our STEAM programs. So I look across the street and I see our dirt lot, and I see that God has unlimited potential there. I know that we have all sorts of ideas of what we're hoping that God will provide. Things like a gym for our learners to be able to do athletics here on campus and not need to rent facilities. To have a standalone high school and middle school building where they can do collaborative learning in a 21st century model right across the street from our elementary. They can have their own cafeteria and grow in so many different ways. We even have visions of having a swimming program and enhancing our baseball, making sure that we can do all sorts of incredible things right here on campus in a way that honors God. When I look at the larger vision for Crossroads, I recognize that the first piece is our Warrior Field. Certainly, Warrior Field isn't building us a high school or a gym or doing any of the incredible things that we have planned in the future, but it is step one, and we have to start somewhere. And so Warrior Field helps us to build our middle school program, which then goes into our high school as we enhance our high school programming. It allows us to be able to offer CIF level sports here on campus, like having soccer or other programs as well. And so I want to finish Warrior Field so that we can continue to grow our school and continue on the pathway to be able to do the incredible things that we have for the dirt lot as well. I have been called to Crossroads for such a time as this, and for the purpose of making sure that every learner gets the education that they need. I feel that this is something that God is calling all of us to. We want to come together to make sure that we serve each one of our learners academically, spiritually, socially, and physically, all for the glory of God. So I would ask you to join me, working on Warrior Field right now, but ultimately so that we can do what our learners need in order to have every door opened to them.